You enter the cavern. It's a cavern with walls and stuff.
Awesome. I light a torch, and I beckon to my fellow party members. Forward! Adventure awaits! What do I see as I look into the gaping maw of the cavern?
A cavern with walls and stuff.
Scott, it sounds like you're dealing with burnout. How about we talk about this week on the Dungeon Masters Dojo?
Support the Dungeon Masters Dojo by heading over to Apple Podcasts and Podchaser and leave a review. Take the time to leave a comment as well. This helps make us more searchable to those listeners interested in content such as ours. But more importantly, we want to know how we are doing and what topics you would like to hear about.
Another way you can support the DMD is with a small monthly donation, so we can continue to deliver quality content to you, our listeners. This also helps us to upgrade and replace equipment. Head over to Anchor, to the Dungeon Masters Dojo page, and click the support button. And now, onto this week's episode.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Dungeon Masters Dojo podcast. This is a show for game masters, as well as experienced and new players alike. We hope to bring you the tools needed to not only be a great GM, but to help you develop as a player. I'm your host, Louis Aponte. Our stars of the show are Scott Labby and Bill Robotile. Let's enter the dojo and see what both Bill and Scott have in store for us today. Hey, Bill. Hey, Scott.
Hey, what's up? I'm anxious and ready to go. How about you, Scott?
I'm worried. He doesn't sound too well.
I'm dealing with burnout.
Well, that sucks.
That sucks. How are we going to run our games?
You don't think you're going to get out of game mastering that easy, do you?
I was hoping.
So, recognizing DM burnout, what are the signs other than what you just showed us?
I think the biggest one is when prepping for your game session, you feel like it's work, like it's a job, and not like this is part of my hobby that I enjoy and I love very much. It's like it becomes work.
Right. You look for excuses to do something other than.
Yeah. It's tedious and cumbersome.
Well, that and from the player's side, repetition. When the game master, you see the game master throwing the same thing at you. All right, you start in a tavern. You wake up in a room.
Yeah, it's like you're out of fresh ideas.
Yeah, it's just here we go again.
So what causes the DM burnout?
Just constantly being a DM. You know, where you have maybe like hypothetically of like 16 people, and you're always running the week-long adventure with that other guy that does it too.
I know some people like that.
I do too.
I've heard rumor.
Yeah, it's a thing. You know, it's just doing it over and over again and not having a break. It's like being at work. You know, if you were at work all the time and never took like a vacation, never, you know, had a weekend off or a day off or whatever have you, then you burn out really quick. And the more often you burn out, the harder it is to kind of re-energize. And when you do re-energize, it's for a shorter and shorter period of time every time.
Yeah, because you'll be re-energized and you'll have some great ideas, but that's all it is, just a couple. When you start recycling things, that's when you know you have a problem.
Yeah,
that's when you know it's like I need to do something about this. If you really enjoy the hobby, you find ways to get around this. You do some research. You find some other avenues of influence and inspiration. And then when you're devoted to the hobby, you make conscious efforts of doing this all the time, even if you're not burned out, to stave off that burnout.
Yeah, you know, sometimes your players being difficult too. I mean, that can really...
It can be taxing.
Yeah.
You spend all this time and effort to line things up and write this adventure, and you get a couple players that just want to be contrary and, I won't say destructive, but that's the end result. They just want to do their own thing. And it's like, oh, well, we have an adventure over here. All right, I'm going to go over here instead. Why? Because it's over there.
Yeah, and that I think is like losing sight of what the game is. And the game is just it's a wonderful opportunity to spend time with your friends, and enjoy the company of those friends,
right? And
over a fun game.
And your players out there, your game master has taken a lot of time to put this stuff together for you, not for him, for you. So a little respect and go along. Play in the sandbox. Okay, it may not be at that particular moment what you want to be doing, but most of the other people on the table it is, and your time will come.
Yeah,
a good game master is going to write something for you as well. You're going to have your time where you're king of the hill in the sandbox, but give everyone else their chance as well, and that's going to keep your game master from burning out because you're using the resources that he's putting in front of you as opposed to trying to invent your own.
And sometimes it's not the game at all. Sometimes it's just life strikes. Maybe work gets really busy. Maybe there's for those of us that are older, there's the care for your parents too as they get older and they're unable to do a lot of the things that they were able to do. It's just life gets
there's care for self for some of us.
Yeah. Life gets in the way and sucks up a lot of time sometimes, and you don't have the time to prepare. So you're maybe up late, or you're kind of stealing moments.
Well, how many times have I come down here and said, "Oh my God, my knee is killing me. I blew it out again. I didn't sleep at all. I haven't slept for 2 days." If you're if you're playing, but especially if you're a game master, that becomes very, very taxing to stay focused when you're not getting the rest, you're not eating the way you should. Then you're working all day on top of that, and the frustrations of there, and they just keep building. Then you come to your table, and it's like, hey, time to have fun. Unless you have forced multiple personalities or unforced multiple personalities, that could be a little bit of a problem.
Yeah, I know. For the three of us, we started playing this game when we were much, 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 much younger, and the only thing we really had to do was pass your classes in school, maybe work, a part-time job, but you had tons of free time to be a player, be a dungeon master, go to the gaming stores and hang out. And as we got older, well, you know how things get.
Responsibilities.
Yeah. You have family obligations.
Family, kids,
work.
A home to take care of.
Yep.
Vehicles. They said, extended family you have to help along with, every now and again. So your responsibilities have magnified considerably. And that all becomes very, very taxing. And then you try to stay focused on writing an adventure, and sometimes your mind just isn't there.
Yeah. Sometimes you just need a break.
Well, I know one of the things we did to correct that, at least for Bill at the moment, on our weekly table, was to start rotating GMs.
That's a great way to not only prevent GM burnout, but to kind of cultivate the skill set of new GMs. And when we did that, and I think you guys will agree, we saw a lot of GMing talent that was kind of, there were a lot of folks at our table that were diamonds in the rough. They committed to like 1 to 4. I think that's what we wanted. Commit to one to 4 game sessions. We did an episodic type of game, which was really, really fun. And we got a lot of buy-in from our players, and I think almost everybody took a crack at it. And
nearly,
yeah. And I was actually really, really, really surprised by some of the ones that our players that jumped in and said, "Yeah, I'll give it a shot," and then did it again. Andrew was probably our biggest sleeper, and when Andrew said, "Yeah, I'll do it," I was like, "What?"
Yeah, we all stopped and just kind of like did the slowly I turned and looked at him and went, "Really?"
And he did a really good job.
He did a very good job.
And then he did it again, and then he did it, I think, a third time. And every time he did it, he got better. You could see his confidence grow.
Right.
And we still had a really, really, really good time. And that's huge when you rotate GMs, and you could do that for an episodic thing like we did, 1 to 4 game sessions, or 6 months, a year, however much,
Yeah, whatever time frame
works,
you can come up with. If you're the game master, the primary game master, storyteller, GM, doesn't matter. If you're the primary dude or gal and you say, I need a break. And now you can say, all right, I just need 2 weeks. I need a month. I need a year. I need whatever I need. Talk to your table. They step up and at some point going, okay, know something? I'm ready. I got it. While you've been doing that, I've been writing. I've got it again. I'm ready to take off. And if they're saying, well, let me finish up my 2 weeks. No, when I had something too, let them have it.
Yeah. And
let them have it. But when they're done, now you're even more prepped. You're even more ready. You had more stuff written down, and now you're off to take off for the next, giant chunk of time that you're going to be doing this. Or they might turn around after 6 weeks, go, something that was really cool. You finished? Good. I got something too. And your table might surprise you. And now this rotating GM thing is a thing. And that's what you could hope for. That'd be the best case scenario.
Yeah, and players, just give it a shot. It doesn't mean you have to be the DM all the time. You may not like it, and that's cool. But just understand that there's a ton of work that goes into it. And I think even if you don't want to run a game, preparing for the game and running the game gives you a really, really good idea of what your GM does on a weekly basis.
What I think, and a lot of people don't probably realize, is when you're playing a game as a player, you're pretty much running the game. Your GM is, as he's sitting by listening to you, all of you, he's just actually, taking in your story. So you guys are, driving the game. So that really shouldn't deter you from actually sitting at that big chair.
And it's so true. When I always say that the DM is just another player at the table because we are.
Yeah.
Our role is just different. But yeah, the characters or the players, they are running the game, and the GM is responding to what they're doing, and that requires a lot of mental energy too, because sometimes they don't always do what you thought they were going to do or hoped they were going to do. So you have to be on your toes, but give it a shot. If anything, it'll give you a newfound respect for what your DM does.
If you wanted it in a nutshell, what it's like to game master, reference episode number 2 of our podcast. Your role as a game master.
Yeah, that's perfect.
Yeah,
and that pretty much that'll sum up what you need to do. All right. Now back on subject. You want to know how to refresh the batteries a little bit? Go to episode number 5, inspiration.
Yep.
How to get
that's another good one.
What's your inspiration as a game master? All right, episode number 5. That's another way to read, and we touch on this subject there too. How to recharge the batteries, how to get yourself back up and running. But the rotating game masters gives you the break you need to start rewriting, resource, get some other references, and recharge your batteries, get you back on track, and that way you're up and running as a game master, storyteller one more time.
Right. And sometimes I think you need a little bit more than that. Sometimes I think just taking a break altogether will help.
It can.
Yeah. Help you get your life back in order if things are in flux at the moment.
Especially if life or work is an issue and say, hey, I don't want to do it, but I got to step back for a little bit. I need for a week or two, a month, a couple months. It sucks for me to step away, and it's going to, really, really bother me. But I hope it doesn't bother you guys. But hey, I got to get things in order. And we've had more than our fair share of guys that have done that sometimes for a couple of years. I mean, we got Marcus right now who has a nice young baby that's, I think we figured out 8-9 months old.
Yep.
All right. He has a good excuse not to be at the game.
Yeah,
Lou, you did the same thing. You bowed out
with
both your kids for a couple of years on each one.
Yep.
You got to do what you got to do, man, because it boils down to this is a game. All right, life takes precedent.
Yeah, and you're right. It is just a game. It's an awesome game.
It's an awesome game with your friends, who coincidentally in our case are all awesome too. But sometimes you got to do what you got to do, and if it is just a game, then take a break, step away from it for a couple of minutes, for a little while, and go from there.
So. Another thing we've done a couple of times, actually numerous times, is we switched up game systems.
Yeah, that's
we actually do this quite a bit.
Yeah, and that's great. I have a blast every time we do. As a player, I have a really good time, and it's not only great to be a DM and take a break, be a player, but it's changing genres can really combat player or DM burnout. Like it's huge going sci-fi or going Wild West or horror. We do that every October.
Right.
Not this one, but
this one we did a podcast just for you, explaining all the different ways to do horror.
Bill is a grand master of shameless plugs.
But it also, when you're switching up genres, it helps. It usually helps break up that writer's block.
Yeah, it does. Because even if you're fooling around outside of genre and writing a game, a one shot or whatever, it's different. Yeah, it's different than when we go from fantasy to horror, or fantasy to superhero stuff. It's different storytelling.
You're firing off different mental triggers. Or you're using a whole different memories. You're using a whole different resources, and you've mentally stepped away. Even if you're physically still doing the work, you've mentally stepped away from the genre that you've been playing in. For us, it's primary fantasy. For your group, it might be World of Darkness. It might be sci-fi. It might be superheroes. It might be whatever your game system is. Stepping into a whole other genre, you're using an entirely different group of mental triggers, and you've disassociated yourself with your fantasy. And sometimes that simple disassociation away from it is all it takes to just kind of break that chain off.
Yeah, and it can be, it can be difficult if you only have one set of rule books. But in looking out there, with the DM's Guild and the whatnot, and all the OSR stuff that's out there,
Yep.
You can pick up a rule book that's rules light. Like I got an OSR post-apocalyptic book, and I forget the name of it, but it was like $6.
Yeah,
and it was rules light, and you could pick up the game in an afternoon. And what do you need? You spend like $18, and you have 3 of those books, and you have plenty for the table, and it's
resource to go back again, because if they like it, they're gonna want to do it again.
And it's a different feel. Even the artwork being different, it gives you a different vibe altogether.
Absolutely. Speaking of vibes, I got nothing for that. Forget it. Let's just take a break.
All right.
Yeah. Speaking of vibes, it was just my phone in my pocket. Sorry, I thought I was having a stroke.
I'm glad it's not.
I get your D&D collection. I just want to lay down.
It's already in the will.
So I know we talked about switching up genres, but we've also mixed things up.
Yeah, you can do that and kind of spice things up. If you're doing a serious kind of heavy campaign, going beer and pretzels, it could really
lighten things up quite a bit.
Yeah. And it doesn't have to be like starting a whole campaign over, but it could be, you put some lighthearted kind of sessions in there,
comedy relief.
Yeah, to lighten up the mood.
If you as the storyteller go campy, your table will follow suit immediately. Yeah, immediately. But at the end of the evening, go, okay, I'm glad you guys enjoyed that. Next week we're going back to serious, so I hope you enjoyed that. I mean,
yep.
Just announce it. But yeah, just go campy, go lighthearted, comedy. Let comedy have reign, and let everyone have just kind of blow some steam off.
Yeah, or have everybody hand their character to the person sitting to their right or left.
I've done that one a number of times.
I remember that a couple times.
Lou looks at me with a glaring look every time we mention this. I've done this a bunch of times. Okay, everyone got your character sheet? All right, hand it to the person to your right. What?
And in our group, nobody ever takes that like seriously. They not so much play the character, but play the player. Who owned the character, which can be really entertaining.
And that becomes our campy.
Yeah, and that's fun to watch.
No, it's not.
Oh, it's fun to watch, see who gets Lou's character, because all they do is thunderwave everything.
That's why I get a bad rap. It's not really me, it's all the other players.
The waitress shows up at the bar with your drinks. Thunderwaver!
Murder hobos.
Okay, and we'll move on. The other thing is to hold another session 0.
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
You hold another session 0. I I don't know. Would it be a session 0 or would it be a session 0.5 or?
Well, there's two ways to go about this. You can hold a session 0, make new characters, same world, same plot line, but now you have higher level characters and lower level characters. And you can, I've done this before, your low level character is your sidekick for your high level character. Or the sidekick to another player at the table. So you're playing your character and I'm playing Lou's sidekick. And you're playing my sidekick.
Yeah, I've done something,
and that's real funny because now you're not, like, or this is what my character's doing, but this is what I'm going to do to your character.
I've played one head on a 2-headed troll before, and that was, or maybe it was an ogre, I don't know, but I was one of the heads on there, and that was pretty entertaining because the other player was the other head.
Right, similar principle. But.
Yeah, and that was fun. Sometimes you just need to reestablish the kind of the expectations too, especially if your players have taken it totally off the rails, and you they're kind of slapstick cartoony and you're trying to do a Game of Thrones type of feel to your campaign.
Yeah, so that's where another session 0 would come in, reestablish the boundaries, reestablish the lines.
Sometimes, you really just have to be honest about it. If there's some players that kind of really took it off the rails and aren't being respectful of the effort and the work that you put in. You never want to stifle player agency, but having these conversations, these hard conversations, hey man, you guys really kind of botched things for me. I thought we agreed we were gonna do this, and if Bill said this earlier, if you'll have your moment to kind of shine, or if you really like this kind of play style, then I'll be happy to do another campaign when this is over that's more in line with your play style or what you prefer. But having those conversations, I think, can really be a big help in kind of reducing that that DM burnout and helping get people back on track.
Well, that's just it. It goes all the way back to when your table takes things off the rails. You've put all this hard work into it, and they're basically disregarding everything that you've put into it. It's going to bring you down. It's like a path that you don't want to be on as a storyteller. It's like they're not paying attention. I've put all this work in. Why should I put all this effort in if they're not going to do anything that I've set up for them?
Yeah, and they may not have any idea that this is going on, or that they're even doing this, or that there's some frustration on your end. So that could be like a really helpful thing, is having those conversations. You may get players that are like, "Oh, I'm wicked sorry. I had no idea. We were just kind of like, we're having a lot of fun. Maybe it was a little out of control. It's,
hopefully.
Oh yeah, hopefully.
There might be the one guy going, well, no, I'm here to have a good time. That's how I have a good time.
I would hope not. I would hope that the majority of people would be like, okay, I'm sorry. I didn't realize that we went that far out.
I think your more experienced and veteran players will realize and say, okay, dude, my bad.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, you're right. We did kind of like, let's get a little more serious. Let's get back on track. Let's less Scooby-Doo and more Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
And then you're off and running. Now, younger storytellers with younger groups that are not as experienced, it might be a little more difficult for you.
Yeah. Yeah. But having those conversations still
that's the easiest
really
way to get it
important.
back on track. Just an honest conversation. You're right. And that can be done at your second session 0.
Yep.
0.0, whatever you want to call it.
And then there's the other thing is that you can do is watch another DM for a while. Take a seat and be the player and just watch somebody else play or run the game.
There's a couple avenues like during this particular pandemic. You go to Roll D20 and you can get in on a game or just ask to sit and watch.
You know what I've been doing a lot of. Sadly, I've been spending a lot of time at work lately, and I have like a lot of downtime at work. I'm in the parking lots a lot. So I've been listening to Jerome over at D20 to Curtain, which is another podcast related to D&D. And while I can't see him running the game, I've been kind of, I get a good gauge for what his style as a DM is. And he's him and his crew are theater actors. And it's obvious when you listen to them talk because
they sound way better than we do.
Way better. And yeah, as a matter of fact, I could probably just listen to that whole group read the phone book, and like every minute. So go check him out, and his crew there. It's a lot of fun. It's an awesome podcast. Doing even stuff like that, even though I'm not running and I'm not really burnt out, but listening to another DM do his thing. And Jerome is a new DM, but he's really good at it. You know, it's like he's, I don't know, a natural.
Yeah.
But listening or watching, you know, YouTube is a good place for that.
YouTube's fantastic. You can watch all kinds of gameplay. And,
Yeah,
and that's just it. You watch other gameplay. Now, you may not like what they're doing. You may love what they're doing, but you're seeing something different.
Yeah.
You're learning.
And you're learning, because even the ones you don't like, you're seeing what you should not do, at least in your eyes. They may be having fun, and their group might love it. It may not work for your group, but you're seeing, okay, well, this, I got to make sure I don't do that. And this guy's fantastic, and I like the way he describes things.
Yes.
And this guy here really knows his rules, but he's too much of a rules lawyer. So I got to find somewhere in between. And these little things will freshen up.
You cherry pick what you like from each one. I would caution folks against watching Matt Mercer and kind of comparing themselves to him. Now, Matt Mercer is a phenomenal GM. And I watch this guy, and I'm watching him, and I'm like, man, I've been doing this for 40 years, and I suck. You know, compared to this guy who's he's good.
Think about this. When we're at the table and you guys say you guys are running, that's how we think about you guys. How can we meet your expectations? It's the same thing.
You suck up.
I know.
But it can be really disheartening.
It can
to see someone who and like it's this guy's part of this guy's job. So he has to be good at it. But you try not to compare yourself to these other GMs.
Use them as a resource.
Right. Yeah.
You're not expected to emulate them or anyone else for that matter. Take what you think you need from them and incorporate it into your style, into your gameplay. And that will help you out tremendously. And let's say you and I both do this. We use different resources. YouTube channels, podcasts, movies. We find all kinds of different things that we use to keep it fresh all the time. Not that we're worried about burnout, but we want to stave it off for as long as humanly possible. And staying fresh and using new resources all the time is a way to do that.
Yeah, and really like watching these other DMs.
Yeah, it's going to be huge.
Yeah, and even just go to your local gaming store if it happens to be open, or when it does open, play a game, or just ask to be like a silent voyeur and watch the game being played and pick out bits and pieces of what these other DMs do. And that could go a really long way towards kind of like re-energizing yourself and trying something new at your game.
Also picking up some tips.
Yeah.
So
ask questions.
Yeah.
That's especially important. Wait till the game's over.
Yeah,
but,
not in the middle of the game.
But ask questions. Ask questions of these DMs, and I would think, or I would hope that our community is kind of accommodating of that.
For the most part, I think they are.
Cultivate new players, cultivate new DMs, especially.
Yes.
Because in doing so, it keeps the hobby alive, and it's an awesome hobby. So why wouldn't you want to do that?
I'm gonna thump our chests a little bit here. You look at the analytics for our podcast. Now, we haven't been out there very long, a little while, but we try to be instructional. And you look at the age demographics of the people that are listening to our podcast. Almost 60% of it is between the age of 24 and 34. These are new game masters.
Yeah, these are the ones
by our
that
standards.
We want. Yeah, we want these brand new people.
Yeah,
these young kids.
This is what we're trying to help players become new DMs. We're trying to help DMs become better DMs. Doesn't mean we're the all-knowing oracles. We're just using our life experiences and passing them on. But that's the demographic we're looking at, and that's who we're hoping is going to keep this hobby alive.
Yeah, so I know everybody's probably asking, well, so what can we do as players to help the DMs with not suffer burnout? The big answer is communication. The whole thing on this whole thing really that we just talked about, there has to be communication through the whole thing.
Yes.
The DM has to be up front and honest with the players, and the players have to be the same with the DM.
Yeah.
Because without that communication, everybody's going to suffer burnout at one point or another.
Communication and respectful.
Exactly.
On both ways.
Yep.
It is not a me versus all of you guys, as from a storyteller's perspective.
It's an us.
It's an us.
It is.
And it's not, all right, as players, let's screw him up. What can we do to mess this dude up? That's not fun for, it may be fun for you as an individual player. But if everyone's there for a story and your game master has put together a story, it's not fun for anybody else.
Right. You have to remember.
Be respectful.
It will be respectful, but remember, this is not a me versus you.
Yes.
This is a cooperative game.
Yeah, and it's cooperative storytelling, and that's it's a wonderful thing when you get it and it's happening at the table, and you see the enjoyment on your players' faces, and I'm sure they can tell. My players can tell when I'm really having a good time running a game, and it's a relationship. There's a social contract in there. It is social gaming. You're not playing a like a computer game. It's a very collective social exercise, and I think that's what really makes the game fantastic. And I have to say that's what probably. And for those of you that are much, much younger than we are, correct me if I'm wrong, go to our Facebook page, but that's got to be what is attracting all of these other young people to the game now, because I think these younger generations are really creative, really thoughtful, and can be really engaged in things like this. So that's really what the game's about.
Well, I mean, if you as the game master are put together a good story, and you as the players are participating and you are being cooperative, it becomes fun. It's no longer work to go to the pen and paper and try to come up with something for your players. They're giving you stuff to work with through the play. You are using it, and that probably is the biggest deterrent for GM burnout.
Yeah, I would have to agree. I can have like a really long day I have a long day of running a game ahead of me, especially when we go away for that week, and you're there for about 8 or 9 hours running a game.
Mm-hmm.
But when your players are behaving just like that, when there's fun and there's collective storytelling and there's that social engagement, that 8 or 9 hours seems like
it goes by quick, doesn't it?
Yeah, it goes by really, really, really quick, and that's where you've hit that stride, that kind of like that sweet spot in the game. And even after like 4 or 5 days of doing that, 5 8-hour days or whatever have you, when it happens at the end of the week and you're exhausted, it still has the same effect.
Well, I know on day 4, when someone goes out to the kitchen for a drink and yells in the other room to my table and goes, "Bill, do you realize it's 1 o'clock? When's lunch?" It's 1 o'clock already? Really? Oh, crap.
And that's our useful tips to keep you fresh when dealing with burnout. That's going to conclude this episode. Thanks for tuning in and listening. Please subscribe to the podcast for more great content. If you'd like to hear a particular topic, you can reach us on Facebook at the Dungeon Masters Dojo, or you can drop us an email at thedungeonmastersdojo@gmail.com. Thank you, and have a good day.